Now, as some of you may know, my channel here initially sort of started out as a theory channel, one that came about in the wake of The Force Awakens and because of all the mysteries that movie left us with, which was back when, we thought there was a solid game plan in place for the trilogy, and that we could actually figure out, to some degree at least, where the story was going based on some of the clues, or what we thought were clues, that were in that first movie. And don't get me wrong here, even back then I knew some of us, and probably even myself, were looking way too much into certain things, that not everything, and likely not most of it, was even meant to be any sort of clue. In fact, I even had a saying back then that the more complicated a theory, the less likely it was to be correct, because whatever the answer was going to be, it'd have to be something that was easily understood by anyone and everyone, even a general audience member, that you certainly wouldn't need a degree in Star Wars lore to understand what was going on. And especially here in hindsight, it's kind of funny to think how much credit we gave to J.J. Abrams and or anyone and everyone else responsible for that movie or the story told within it, that we somehow believed it to be this meticulously crafted thing, that there were all these tiny little shreds of evidence sprinkled in, or small puzzle pieces for us to pick up on and find and be able to assemble, when in reality almost nothing presented in it added up or amounted to much of anything, at least nothing that would be revealed in future movies. I mean, not even the Force flashback scene that Rey had when she touched Anakin's lightsaber, the one Luke had lost during his duel with Vader on Cloud City, not even that really hinted at or alluded to anything to come. Sure, in The Rise of Skywalker, we did kind of get the ending of that vision explained. We learned why Rey had been left on Jakku and by who, sort of anyway. But the rest of it, like why Rey was seeing Kylo and the Knights of Ren slaughter all these people in the rain on this planet, well, that turned out to be nothing. And the sad part is, of all the things I analyzed from that film and now turns out just overthought entirely, that Force Vision was the one thing I thought they must have had a carefully laid out plan for. That if nothing else was meant to be a clue or clues, that whole vision had to be. That maybe this was a vision not so much from the Force itself, but rather from the Force ghosts, who were trying to lead Rey to Luke to be trained in order to deal with Kylo and or Snoke, which would make sense considering at one point, at the end of the vision, we do hear Obi-Wan literally speak to Rey. We hear him say to her that these are her first steps. But nope, turns out that was all just another power that Rey has, and that's pretty much it. Turns out, in the end, we get just another lazy or lame explanation after the fact to cover up yet another part of the poorly thought out story that was the sequel trilogy. Because in an upcoming book simply called The Star Wars Book, which is basically just a giant encyclopedia for the galaxy far, far away, we learn that this was an ability used by Rey called Forceback, which is actually just an advanced version of psychometry, an ability we've seen used by Quinlan Vos, and Cal Kestis uses it in the game Jedi Fallen Order, where it's a clever way to help give the game a little more backstory, if you will. Anyway, it's an ability that allows someone to touch an object and sense, or see, or hear, or even feel its past, or the past of someone who once possessed it. And it's the type of ability you either have or you don't have. It's not one that you can learn through training, which of course makes it quite unique and rare. However, again here, Rey not only has this ability, she has a super buffed up version of it, one that frankly doesn't even make any sense whatsoever, because where the standard version of psychometry is, yes, useful and rather powerful, it's also very limited. Again, you can only see the history of the item you're touching, and anyone who directly is associated with it who once possessed it, which makes sense. But Rey's super version of this ability lets her touch an object and see, well, its past, present, future, and even images that are, at the very most, loosely or indirectly associated with the item, like when she saw herself being dropped on Jakku as a child after touching the lightsaber. Because, yeah, she'd one day possess the lightsaber and be part of its overall history, which means her past is, I guess, kinda connected to it. But then again, clearly she has little or no control over this ability, because otherwise why didn't it kick in with the Sith dagger that we see in The Rise of Skywalker? Why didn't she see all the history behind it when she picked it up for the first time? Heck, the history of that is certainly more connected to her than Anakin's old lightsaber was, considering her parents were murdered with that dagger. But nope, no Forceback ability kicked in that time, though yes, she did mutter to herself when she picked it up that horrible things had been done with this. Which I guess was just a muted version of normal psychometry kicking in this time, because if the full-blown thing kicked in right there, if her super-powered version of it had kicked in, how could Kylo later be the one to tell her that her parents had been killed with it, and that she's a Palpatine and all that other fun stuff? But anyway, her muttering that horrible things had been done with it, thus implying she sensed something from it, when I'm guessing any Jedi would have sensed something bad had been done with a Sith dagger. Anyway, all that probably opened the door for them to give her this ability well after the fact, because let's be real here, this is just another attempt to patch up holes in the story. And like I was kind of saying before, the easy fix here would have been to just say Anakin's lightsaber called out to Rey and gave her the vision because of the Force Ghost. They wanted to send her to Luke, and since especially Obi-Wan and obviously Anakin have such a strong connection to it, they were able to call out to Rey via it somehow and gave her the vision, and even were able to speak to her a little bit, which really could have been a simple and clean account of what had happened that would require no further explanation. But somehow the Lucasfilm story group didn't go with something that easy or simple, and I can almost see them all sitting around the table discussing the Force vision from Episode 7, tossing out this idea that it could just be the Force ghosts, and we could more or less close the book on the whole thing and use that explanation. Now, yeah, sure, maybe they showed her a few things that really didn't matter so much to her. Nobody's perfect after all. Not even immortal, all-seeing ghosts, it seems. Otherwise, they would have shown up long before and directly warned Luke about everything to come with Ben Solo and so on. Anyway, letting that go for now, you can almost see the Lucasfilm story group sitting there discussing all this, saying we could just make it where the Force ghosts had sent Rey to Luke and be done with the whole thing. Or we can give yet another incredible ability to Rey, and they jumped on that idea instead, even though it complicates things where the other idea, the Force Ghosts, would have just simplified the whole thing. And yes, I am kind of joking around here, or so I hope, and I've discussed this before, but I think you have to be careful that you don't turn Jedi into superheroes, that using the Force doesn't become something too similar to having superpowers, which, ironically enough, is even something the Last Jedi addresses, when Rey at first basically thinks the Force is a power that Jedi use to move rocks. And though, yeah, I am okay with the idea that a small number of Force users have these unique abilities like psychometry, or that some Force users are better in certain areas than others, or that even without training, you can naturally or instinctively tap into the Force and use it to some small degree, I'm not a fan of having super powerful natural abilities just sort of kick in, or being able to use the Force in general to a great degree with no prior training, because it defeats the whole idea that using the light side of the Force requires a great deal of discipline and sacrifice. Has everyone at Lucasfilm forgotten when Yoda said that the dark side was the quick and easy path? Even the child in The Mandalorian, I think, is too much with all the things he seems to naturally be able to do without training, though maybe he does have training, who knows, we'll probably find that out. And that we fans only let it slide because of his species, that we just assume that, well, he's Yoda's kind, so him being crazy strong with the Force is just okay. And I almost hope that we learn that his species pays some sort of price for using the Force, that it requires a different type of selflessness. Like they literally have to give of themselves to use the Force, that using it is actually what causes them to age. I mean, sure, it's a little cheesy and out there, granted, but it actually fits into Star Wars pretty well. They can either be selfish and not use the Force at all to help others and live for forever, basically, or they can use it to help others, but it will eventually age and kill them, though you might just ask why they don't use the dark side of the Force. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic here, and I know some of you will think or say that I'm just upset that Rey gets another ability because of this reason or that, when really, I just want them to be careful when dishing out powers. I mean, watch the first two Star Wars trilogies again, and tell me what you think are the most powerful abilities you see the Jedi use. Again, as I've pointed out before, the Jedi usually use the Force to augment otherwise normal attributes. They can use the Force to run faster, jump higher, have better reflexes, and so on. And beyond that, they can pull and push stuff, trick the weak-minded, and so on. But they're not doing things like healing, lifting incredibly heavy things with little effort, or being able to have clear visions of the past, present, and future all at the same time. And personally, and you can of course disagree with me, but I really like it that way. I like the way Qui-Gon says or laments in Episode 1 that he wishes that were so when Anakin declares no one can kill a Jedi, because that's not the case. They're not super-powered superheroes. And if I want to watch a movie about superheroes that have insane powers and can do truly incredible things, I'll watch a superhero movie. So please, Lucasfilm, let's chill with this idea of giving Jedi powers out. That's not what it's all about. Even Luke in The Last Jedi got that right. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about all this. Do you think the Force vision should have been explained away by Force ghosts causing it? Or do you like the idea of Rey having a buffed version of psychometry? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.